Well, then you don't need to say anything, I suppose.
Should we have a democratic discussion in this House about politicians' pay, where the public can listen in and indeed exercise influence on us about what the pay levels should be? Yes, I do think that would be preferable. Absolutely. And I think if the public out there had a say in it, they would say we are paid far too much. And they would say it would be far better if our pay was linked to the average pay of working people out there, because then we would be representing everybody and not just the well-paid.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ciarán Comhairle. Deputy, that's a view that you are perfectly entitled to hold, and as a member of this House, you are perfectly entitled to bring forward whatever legislation that you think is appropriate to empower this House to set its own rates of pay. I do not think that that would be a better system. I think that the system we have, which is completely independent, it is beyond our direct control. We are linked to a certain grade within the civil service, and I think that that settles the issue. And we are linked to that grade irrespective of whether the rate of pay is going up or going down. And you know, you've spoken about the 2% and you're not going to take it. You know, some deputies may take it, other deputies will not, and it's a matter for each individual to make that decision. And I'm not going to lecture or advise anyone as to what they should do. I'm telling you what I'm doing personally as a member of government, and that is the equivalent of an annualised cut in pay of 12%, which is the right thing to do, because we are in a hugely privileged position to serve in government and to represent the people of this country, as well as our own individual constituencies. So, you know, it's a matter for yourself. If you have a proposal to make it to the House in a democratic forum in the normal way.
Minister, you're not really seeming to get the point. I mean, I was down on the picket line with Debenhams workers the other day, and they were sickened at the thought that people in this House were going to get a pay increase when their PUP payments were going to be cut by the very people in this House. Now, do you understand why they would be sickened? About a situation where they've been abandoned, where the government have let them down, people have worked for decades and have just been dumped on the scrap heap. The government sits by and gives them tea and sympathy but does nothing to help them, and they are just literally dumped by a ruthless company and a government that washes their hands of their fate. And then they see that the politicians are giving themselves a pay rise. Do you not get how angry that would make them? And I can tell you it wasn't me prompting them. But when I hear that kind of stuff, I think we've got to respond to that. And we have to say it's not just a matter of individual choice. And fair play to you for making that choice. And we've made that choice, that we won't take the pay increase. But I don't believe any politician in this House should get a pay increase on an already high salary against that background.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, please.
Yeah, Deputy, you know, you've characterised it once again as politicians giving themselves a pay rise. And that's misleading. And you know it is misleading. And that is stoking up the anger that is undoubtedly there. And the reality is that the system that is in place takes it out of the hands of politicians, in essence. And I think that that is the right thing to do, because you might think that it would be a great thing to bring in legislation that reduces politicians' pay. But if you give that power to the House might make a different decision at another point in time that you would completely disagree with. So isn't it far better that we have a system that we do not directly control? And you have singled out politicians, as is your right and as is your form. There are many others in the public service earning far more than politicians, and you haven't singled them out. So you want very special treatment for politicians to not be paid the 2%. As I have said, I'm not taking it. Members of government are not taking it. But I think it is only proper that we allow each individual to make that decision. So, you're throwing all of this out there, but I don't hear an alternative proposal as to what to do.
Thank you,
if you have one, bring it forward.
Deputy Boyd Barrett.
What is it?
As to link the pay of people in here to average industrial earnings. Okay, that's our proposal. That's our policy, and that's what we campaign for. And secondly, I agree with you on higher paid civil servants. That would also nauseate people. Right? I think the low and middle income, the vast bulk of public servants were savaged with FEMPI. But those cuts didn't mean the same for the super well-paid civil servants at the very top of the civil service, and that nauseates people too. So we do have a policy for that, Michael, and we've put it across many times in this House, which is nobody should be getting paid more than €100,000 out of the public purse. Nobody. And that there should be taxes that are higher bands of taxes on anybody, public or private, who does earn earnings in excess of €100,000. So that we end a situation where there's shocking differentials between the earnings of average and low-income people in this country, who work just as hard as anybody in here, and people who are on multiples of those salaries.
Thank you, Minister. To conclude.
You'd add some extra points in that contribution there, that you want every deputy in the House to be paid the average industrial wage, and you're perfectly entitled to have that policy, and I don't know if that is a policy that you would also apply to all other public servants who are earning at or above the level of a TD. Perhaps that is your policy, I simply don't know. All that I can do is to say that I think we have a system which means we're not setting our own pay. It's linked to a certain grade within the civil service. It takes it out of our own direct hands as to what the level of pay is. And of course it grates with people, with many people who are in extremely tough circumstances to see anyone on good pay getting an increase. And that is why some members of the House have decided not to take it, but it's open to others to accept it, and I'm not going to pass judgment or to lecture anyone as to what they should do in their own life and in their own individual circumstances, which we cannot know all about in all cases.
Thank you very much, Minister.